Good Shabbos again, and Chag Sameach as we begin the next festival holiday of Sukkot. And as we approach Sukkot, and after finishing Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there's a question I get at this time of year, and a question I get really throughout the year, often. Rabbi, how can I find happiness? It's a question I think we all struggle with. How do I find true happiness in life, no matter my age, no matter my station in life, no matter my status? How can I find the happiness that I may be looking for? In many ways, that question is an example of the great paradox of modern day life. In so many ways, life, with all the challenges that we certainly face, especially now, still, life, especially for those of us who are blessed to live in this great country of the United States, life has never been easier. We may think that these times are tough, and they are. But let us never forget historically where we are at this point. For example, just 100 years ago, at the beginning of the 20th century, the life expectancy of most people in Western countries, like the United States, was somewhere around 50 years old. Today, it's near 80. Just 100 years ago, the type of medical care, the sanitation, the type of conditions in which we live in were unheard of, even by the wealthy classes. The medical care that we can receive, unheard of just a few decades ago. That's the great paradox of modern day life. Life, in so many ways, has never been safer and more convenient and easier, and yet we've never been more unhappy. Survey after survey shows that Americans of all classes, of all ages, have never been this unhappy. And I'm talking before the coronavirus, all the more so now, of course, but rates of depression and anxiety and stress are at all-time highs. And that's the great paradox. How could that be? Life's never been safer, more convenient, easier, and yet depression has never been more severe. Is it because of the type of society in which we live in? This consumer-based society in which the focus is often on what we don't have instead of what we do have. We're bombarded by commercials, whether it's on TV or on the internet, on Facebook or in the magazines we read, of people seeming to have it all. A nicer house, a nicer car, nicer clothes, nicer jewelry. And often as we, and especially our young, go through their social media, whether it's on Instagram or TikTok or on Facebook, and they're often bombarded by seeing the things that they don't have. We see the things we don't have. And so perhaps that's one key reason of this consumer-based society, which tends to focus and make us crave the things that they say we need. Does that contribute to our unhappiness? Perhaps there's an answer in the great biblical book of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, which is traditionally read this weekend on the Holiday of Sukkot. The rabbis encourage us to read this book. Why? Why this book? This very mysterious, yet very real book of the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. Why this book, this short book, but this very meaningful book of the Bible? Why are we supposed to read it on this holiday? Perhaps we can look at the author of the Book of Kleelet, a man who has everything, yet it seems at first that nothing of what he owns makes him happy. Listen to his words. And if you're at home, you'll see the words now on your screen. Let me read just a few verses and listen closely to what the author of Kohelet says. He says, I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. I owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasures of kings and provinces. I became far greater than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. And yet, the author concedes, when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. It's amazing. This man of Kohelet, a wealthy man, a man who seems to amass great fortunes, he has everything, and yet, at the beginning of the book of Kohelet, he seems so unhappy. Why? Notice the repeated use of the verses I just read of the first person singular. It's all I did this. I built this for me. I did that. My colleague, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, points out that many people read this book and at first conclude that its theme is disillusionment. But eventually, as we read through the book, the author does eventually discover something that relieves his depression, his weariness. We find the word joy. Not happiness, but joy. A word that appears 17 times in the course of this short book. What the author eventually reveals is that what makes life worth living and bringing lasting joy, not fleeting happiness, is not the wealth of our hands, not the things that we build for ourselves, but being with other people, working with others, quality time with our spouses, our children, those closest to us. The author of the book finds joy when he helps others and treats others with kindness and respect. Maybe we shouldn't be so surprised. Think about the people that you know who seem to be joyful, happy with their lots, full of gratitude, who are pleasant, who are a pleasure to be with, who light up a room, those who seem to have true joy in their lives. Why? In this finding of being with other people, that's what brings us true joy, is backed up by a remarkable study that I encourage you to look up after Shabbat. It's called the Grant Study. Beginning back in 1938, this study tracked the lives of 268 Harvard students for almost 80 years with one goal in mind: seeking to understand what characteristics, from personality type to intelligence to health, habits, and relationships, which of those qualities, which of those human characteristics contributed to human flourishing. For more than 30 years, the project was directed by George Valiant, whose books, Aging Well and Triumphs of Experience, have explored this fascinating territory. In an interview, he was asked, "What did you learn from this 80-year study?" His response: "The only thing that really matters in life is your relationship to other people." It's about close relationships. More than money or fame, he went on to say, are what keep people happy throughout their lives. They're even better predictors of a long and happy life than social class, IQ, or genes. Far more than what we buy or what we own or what we earn, happiness, according to this study, is a matter of how we relate to others. Yes, in our tradition, joy is often described as when one shares time and blessings with other people. It's in the we, not the I. Joy is happiness shared. Our tradition has always been clear. Don't go searching for happiness. Go searching for meaning. Meaning in our relationships, meaning in our work, meaning in the contributions you can make to help others, even strangers. And in that meaning, there's more likely of a chance you'll find the joy you are seeking. Tonight, as we begin the holiday of Sukkot, the Torah instructs us very clearly. It says, "You shall hold the Feast of Booths for 7 days. You shall rejoice in your festival with your son and your daughter and your spouse." And then it goes on to say, "and the stranger, the orphan, and the widow in your communities." Then the Torah says, "If you do those things, you shall have nothing but joy." You shall have nothing but joy. This key phrase is only mentioned in the Torah in connection with the holiday of Sukkot. And according to the Torah, this holiday in which we begin tonight is considered to be the most joyous of festivals, Zman Simchatenu, the time of our happiness. Is it because by rejoicing with others, by sharing our blessings, we can find something that is lasting? Joy. Sukkot allows us to celebrate the bounties of nature outside, not in the comforts of the homes that we may build for ourselves, but outside amidst Sukkot, more than any other holiday of the year, reminds us that life is not about an endless search for happiness. It's about a productive search to be with other people that leads to lasting joy. It's a search that's not found on social media, but it's a search that's found with other people in person. Yes, my friends, in our Corona world, Sukkot this year will be very different than others past. It will be difficult to have all the people we may normally have in our sukkahs. But this will all end soon, God willing. And when it does, can we remember Sukkot's eternal message the next time we wonder, how can I find happiness in life?